It's July 7th. Let's do an early July garden tour. I cannot wait to show you all of the growth. Starting with this first trellis area, these are those tomatoes that I started after we dealt with that difficult spring. Some of them are the ones that I purchased from the greenhouse close to me, that local nursery. These are the ones right here. And I believe these are the rust hearts. They are not pushing out any oh, I spoke too soon. Here we are. Some fruit and some flowers. But it is still pushing off new growth and also some more potential flowers. With that heat, we did deal with a lot of dried up flowers. We went through a heat wave. If you saw my post before that, yeah, so some of the flowers that are on the tomatoes you'll see are going to be like this because of that heat that just kind of came out of nowhere, and they braced for impact. So that's how they decided to survive throughout it, by eliminating those seeds or flowers. The flowers died off and it sent new growth out to hopefully give us more fruit. But yeah, this is getting pretty big. I am going to come through here and probably, well, I don't need to prune it yet, but eliminate any suckers that I see that I need to ultimately trim back to avoid it just from producing too many leaves, and try to get it to focus on producing more flowers so that we get more fruit. These two are my mystery tomatoes that I don't remember what I planted. I think these might be those 4th of July. If they're not, they're the Sweet 100s or the Sun Golds, because those are the two varieties that I can think of that I may have planted here. But as you can see, they are also producing flowers, but I don't see any fruit on these yet. And this one over here, again, I'm not seeing any well, we have some flowers starting, but no fruit. But they did take off pretty significantly since that last tour. So as you can see from this side, they are starting to be trained to climb up that trellis. And then we're going to move on to our peppers. These are the Munganji peppers, and I have picked some of the original fruit that was on it. They were starting to turn color, and I have not been able to utilize them yet. I still have them inside. I might just cook one to see how it tastes. But this plant, I think when we first planted it, it was down here. So it's grown significantly in the last couple weeks, as well as pushing out some new flowers and hopefully new fruit. So far, I just see the flowers budding. So that's a good sign, and hopefully it will keep growing and we will get some of those peppers to try this year. Along here we have, I believe, the provider beans that I planted, and they are just taking off. They've grown significantly since they were their tiny little seedlings. We have something coming through and chewing on them, but they still look relatively healthy. I will keep them there, and hopefully we get a lot of beans. I just keep succession planting beans, so I just keep coming through about every 2 weeks and just planting beans throughout each bed. Typically I like to plant them on the edge of the beds so that they can kind of fall over that way, and that's where I can come and pick. And I'll show you that in other beds where we do have some beans already that I've been producing. All of the lettuce is gone. I need to remove that sign. And then I have some zucchini that I have succession planted in that area where the lettuce was. Over here is that mystery pepper, which is looking like a jalapeno at this point. It has not grown much in height, but it has put off a lot of new leaves, and it does look to be pushing out some flowers. Some of them did dry out like the tomatoes, but the leaves are looking nice and lush, so things are looking pretty hopeful there. Happy to see it did well with that relocation that I did originally. And then over here, we have one tiny edamame that has been chewed, it looks like. Oh, losing focus here. As you can see, something came through and chewed these. I think we've been dealing with chipmunks. I've seen them in the garden or around the garden, and I think those are the ones that have been coming through in, which is weird, it's only in specific beds, but they're coming through and just kind of decapitating them. But this one still wants to try to survive, so I'm gonna leave it there. And then here is the shishito pepper plant that is not looking like it's doing too well. In fact, I'm gonna remove those leaves at the bottom because they are looking to be turning brown. And I can just eliminate the ugly ones, or the ones that are not looking healthy, I should say. And hopefully it will continue to grow. But this one's looking a little less healthy, but it is pushing off fruit. It does have those flowers, so we'll keep it here unless it starts to show significant signs of disease. But from what I see, it should make a comeback. We'll see what happens there. And we have those carrots that have sprouted and are starting to push out those leafy greens. And I removed all of the onions from the edge of this bed where the edamame was starting to take over, which these are also showing flowers, so we should get some edamame pods growing soon. And then this was the area, I believe I still had broccoli the last time. If I didn't, it was pulled right before I did that first tour. But over here, I believe, if I didn't plant them in the last video, I did have seedlings of zucchini. And these are the Golden Glory zucchini. As you can see, they have grown an insane amount in those weeks. So this one's still kind of small, but these three, I know it looks like two, but there's actually three. I have one that's not staked. The one that is not staked, I plan on having it vine down outside of the bed. But I did stake these up to do some vertical planting. And if you look closely, you'll see ants, but you'll also see those golden zucchinis starting to form. Very excited about that. And if I back up a little bit, you'll see more edamame, and then more provider beans, and here's the tomatoes. Moving on to sweet potatoes. As you can see, they have become quite lush in the last couple weeks, which is a great sign. But I am gonna start training these guys to vine up the trellis. They're starting to push out all over, which is fine. I want them to push out a little bit this way. Mainly, I want them to try to trellis up that panel to give it some space to grow and hopefully get a lot of potatoes in this portion of the bed. Over here, you will see that is one of those beans that I was telling you about, that the chipmunks or something else is coming through and just completely decapitating them. So not excited to see that, but very excited to see how these sweet potatoes are turning out. And if you look here, we have some more beans that don't look very healthy, but I will keep them there and just see what happens. Over there, the marigolds are taking off, which I love to see. And we have all of our pepper plants. Now, from the last video where I did the tour, I believe these two were still here. I decapitated them and ultimately just decided that I needed to give some of the ones that looked healthier more space to grow. And then these decided that it was gonna push out new leaves from the roots that I guess didn't get cut back deep enough in the soil. So I'm leaving them here. I don't know if they'll produce peppers, but I'm leaving them here and letting them do what they want to do. Because everything else is starting to perk up and look relatively healthy now. I mean, I think the last time these peppers were maybe down here, so they're growing pretty rapidly now that the heat has come and things are stable, I would say. So they're just kind of, they've gotten over that wet spring and now they're drying out to the point where they're able to spread their wings a little bit, and we're getting some lush green growth. We have quite a few peppers forming along with buds and flowering. So I'm very excited to see everything. This one looks relatively large. So they're doing pretty well. Those are all the bell peppers. And then here are, I want to say these are banana peppers. That's a banana pepper that I, again, thought I eliminated. Over here, we have the banana goddess peppers. These are all Jedi jalapenos. Those are taking a little bit longer. My bells are the ones that really have just pushed out and shown a lot of growth, and they're telling me they're happy, other than this guy that has a dry flower on it. But maybe it will still produce fruit. We'll see. But over on the other side, we have the peppercini peppers. I don't see any peppercinis yet. I do see a lot of flowers. So hopefully in the next couple weeks, we will get some more growth and these peppers will start really pushing out and producing, and hopefully we'll get some peppers within the next couple months that are ready to be harvested. In addition to that bed, I did plant, like I said, I've been doing this on pretty much every bed. I have gone through and planted these either dragon tongue or provider beans, and these are starting to show flowers, which I'm very happy to see. Along with my herbs, I have some rosemary, I have a few carrots lined up in this bed, as well as my basil, and again more beans and marigolds. Over here, this was my makeshift green stock, and we have some issues here. So this was purchased, all of these were individually purchased from the Dollar Tree, and it was just kind of an experiment to see how it would last. And unfortunately, the weight of everything has created an issue down here where we lost a few of those planters. I think we lost 2 3-tier planters. As you can see, the dirt and then the remnants of it. So I am just kind of keeping an eye on what we still have in here, which is some lettuce that's bolting, more lettuce that's not bolting but doesn't look like it's going to form a nice head. And then we have our cosmos, nasturtiums, these cucumbers or zucchini that are growing, as well as some basil. And on the other side, we have some beans and more zucchini and cucumber. So things are not looking too great here. I will probably take this down at the end of the season if it lasts that long, but at least we know now they do not hold weight very well, especially if you stack them as high as I did. Maybe if you did like 3 or 4 of them, it might have been a better solution. But I think next year I'm gonna try to do an actual green stock and see how that works. But my experiment was just that, an experiment, so I can't really be that upset about it. Things are growing, but not to the level I would like them. Turning around, I'm moving on to this bed here. These are all of my basil plants for the most part. I do have some scattered in other beds, but we have provider beans on the edge of this bed, as well as the lemon basil that likes to flower frequently. I'm gonna have to come through and pick those flowers. And I actually might need to come through and harvest some more basil. So as you can see, things look pretty lush and happy. So I am not complaining. This tomato here, as you can see, did deal with some of that dried flowers from the heat, but we do have some fruit still. I think we only have 2. And hopefully the top of the plant will produce some healthier flowers in the coming weeks that won't dry out. We do have some sun gold tomatoes that have ripened to the point of being able to pick, which is very exciting. I can't remember how big these were. I'll have to go back and look, but they are starting to grow up that trellis really nicely. We have a ton of fruit. This is why I love growing these sun golds or those sweet 100s, because they are just so rewarding. They make you feel like you're absolutely amazing at gardening. They are definitely a confidence booster for me because they just love to climb these trellises and they just shoot out so much fruit, and they continue to give me fruit. Last year I think I was still harvesting right before frost, so they do really well, at least here in my climate, zone 6B. They handled the summer last year pretty well, and they handled that early frost that we were getting in the fall. So I really love growing these. I know they're not the best to store, but they're so fun to grow. The kids love picking them, and we already have some that are ready. Can't wait to come through here and start collecting these beautiful tomatoes. Over here, I believe this is a hot streak. From the looks of it, that's what it's gonna be. It's supposed to be like an orange, red, yellow situation, which you can see kind of looks tie-dye. Right now they're green, but as you can see, the way that it's designed out, it's gonna be a really beautiful tomato. But now that, because I didn't have this planted with a label, I didn't know what it was, but now I know. It is at least some sort of slicer variety. It looks to be flowering pretty nicely and continuing to climb as well. So it's very happy in this location, very happy to see it. We do have some dried up flowers in some of the locations, but it does look like most of the flowers are staying put and doing pretty nicely. I do like to come through and shake them, or like shake the actual trellis to help pollinate them. I don't know if it actually works, but it helps me, or at least makes me think I'm doing something productive, helping the plant grow if the pollinators cannot find the flowers. So again, these are just, let me take a step back so you can see truly how well they are starting to trellis up this cattle panel. And we'll move to this. These are the tomatillos, and they have just completely taken over this entire bed. These are the varieties I started by seed. These are the ones I purchased. I don't know what happened with the ones I started by seed. We do have some fruit down here that's forming and flowers, which is good. In this specific plant, I see a ton of flowers. I'm not seeing a ton of fruit. So I don't know which one actually is going to end up being the most productive. We will hopefully get some fruit with the amount of flowers that we have on these two plants here. So they're supposed to be ready in 65 days, and I am just going to continue to keep my eyes on them. Down below, I did have my cilantro in this area. I had to pull this, it was bolting, and then this actually broke, so we lost the flowers anyway, so I had to remove those. And I have my edamames growing along with some, it looks like maybe edamame as well. If not, it's a provider bean that does not look happy. These do look pretty lush. They have some flowers, but they're drying up. I'm not sure what's going on there. I'm gonna have to continue to keep an eye on that. We have carrots still growing, some basil growing, and then over on this side of the trellis, we have these mama, I believe these are the big mama variety. This plant has just confused me most of this season. It's growing. The leaves just keep curling. I don't know if there's some sort of nutrition deficiency going on in this specific bed, that the tomatoes are not thriving here specifically, or if it's something specifically with this plant, but it's still growing. It's still pushing out fruit. It does still have flowers that look nice, and continues to grow. So I'm just leaving it here. I don't see any signs of specific disease, but it looks like it's continuing to grow pretty successfully. And same goes for this one as well. We have more fruit. I had to take a break, one, because the neighbor started mowing the lawn, and two, my dogs were going crazy. So while I was waiting, I did go through and cut some fresh cut flowers for an arrangement. So when we get to the flower area, you will see why it is not showing a lot of blooming flowers, because I did already cut them for this arrangement. But look how stunning. I just had to share. There's a ton of stuff in here. All right, now we are gonna move on. So we have our Cosmos. This is the other side of those tomatillos, and these are the tiny tomatoes I did start. These are the Grandero. This is a super steak. These are the Grandero on the other side of this trellis, as well as some chamomile and another Grandero that is showing signs of redemption. So we are getting some growth finally with these tiny baby ones that I did plant late. I don't see any flowering, with the exception of maybe right here we might have a flower if it's not dried up, and then we also have it pushing out more leaves and suckers. So happy to see that. But I have noticed a ton of friends in the garden. This is so exciting for me. These are swallowtail. Where are they? There's one. Swallowtail. They're gonna be swallowtail butterflies, but they like carrot tops and parsley and dill, and they are great beneficial pollinators for the garden when they become butterflies. So they don't typically do a ton of damage from what I've read on your plants that they kind of eat off of. So I'll leave them here. They're friends for the garden. And this is exciting because I don't think I saw one last year. So the fact that I can see 3 on those plants, and then I did find one earlier, that's how I found out it was the swallowtail, because sometimes I'm not sure if they're friends or foe. These are for sure friends though, so happy to see them there. And then we have the tomatoes along this side, as well as look at all those cucumbers. So when they become butterflies, hopefully they will help with the pollination process of everything else, and it's just the gift that keeps on giving. So I gave them some of my carrot tops and they will help me get more fruit. So right here we have these are the Max Pack cucumbers, and I did harvest the first of 3 of the plants. There was like 1 on each that I harvested. I have not done anything with them yet, but I might do some fresh pickles just since we only have 3 and they're not super big, but they're perfect pickling cucumbers. I'm very excited about this variety, and they appear to be very prolific. If you can see, we have a lot of flowers, but we also have a lot of baby cucumbers that hopefully are being pollinated, and everything is just looking really great. These are starting to climb pretty significantly up this trellis situation, so I am very excited about that. I absolutely love my cucumbers. These are the unagi ones, and they are taking a little bit more time to grow, but they are also a larger cucumber and they don't have male flowers. So every flower is supposed to be a fruit. And as you can see, I am getting little baby cucumbers all over the place. I don't know if I have any on these plants yet, but oh, here we go. There's one. Things are starting to take off in the cucumber area, and I am just so excited. Again, a very rewarding crop is a cucumber. These are more of, I believe, these are the 4th of July tomatoes, if I'm not mistaken. And they're also just putting out tons and tons of fruit. So we have all of these down here with more flowering and more growth. So this is just hopefully going to keep pushing out more growth. And again, the vision here is to have everything climb up and around each trellis and vice versa. So things are shaping up to be what I envisioned. If you go over here, these are the dwarf varieties, as well as some of the determinate varieties that I had planted. I believe all of these were purchased from a greenhouse, and everything is looking really nice. They've all pushed out more fruit. They're pushing out flowers. We have actual tomatoes going on over here. Let me see. These are, I gotta look and see what type this is. Oh, it's this one. I apologize. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that, but I'm very excited for this sweet, tart, and smoky flavored tomato. I think that would be great on the grill or with like a grilled cheeseburger, you know, or just freshly sliced with some salt and pepper. I am so excited for all of the tomatoes. We have a ton of Roma over there. Under all of that, I can bring you over there in just a second, but I just wanted to show you how much growth we have seen within these varieties. And again, all of those beans, I have just pulled a lot of those onions that were in this bed, so it will give the tomatoes more room to grow. And then we have some carrot tops. This is where I found the other swallowtail, which I don't see at the moment. Oh, there it is. Here. Well, let me get a better view. There's the other one, and it is very happily enjoying those carrot tops. So again, I'm gonna keep them. These are the Romas. If you can see all of the fruit that is growing, I mean, I'm so excited. I think this is one of the only Romas I have, so the fact that it's pushing out all of this relatively decent size Roma fruit, I'm excited. Plus we have more coming with all the flowers, so yay to that. We have our calendula growing nicely. I did just come through and pick some of that for my flower arrangement. Some chamomile that has not flowered yet. It's in the shade, so it's just taking a little bit of time, but it is starting to bush out pretty nicely. And then if you wrap it around, those are the inagi. Those are the 4th of July variety. And then right here, I believe are more of those 4th of July or sauce. It says sauce, but yeah, it's the 4th of July variety, and you can use them for sauce, which is because I have not had luck with many of the sauce or paste varieties in the past. So I wanted to try something different that could be utilized for multiple things, since this is labeled as something for like slicing and sauces. So very excited for that. Look at all the fruit and flowering. So it's just going to continue to vine, continue to hopefully push out more fruit as the season continues, and we are going to get an abundance of tomatoes this year, which I do plan on donating. I have grown a few of these plants specifically dedicated to just donating to my local area, because I have the area to grow, and I will not utilize all these tomatoes myself. So I will have plenty to make my salsa and my sauces, and also share with others that enjoy tomatoes as well. Right here, again, I want to say this is, honestly, now I'm not sure, because it does not look like the 4th of July. It's starting to look more like a sauce. So I'm wondering if this is a Roma variety or a indeterminate sauce variety, because it's pushing out some mighty big leaves with plum looking tomatoes or sauce paste tomatoes. So I don't know, we'll have to see what happens, but it's doing pretty well. These leaves are actually massive on this plant. I have been just coming through and pruning as I can, getting rid of suckers just so that it doesn't get choked out by the cucumbers, and we have space for everything to grow where it's supposed to be. Over here we have the hot streak tomatoes. These are the ones that I showed earlier that have those beautiful coloring that will be orange, yellow, and red. It's just such a cool looking tomato. This is my first year growing it. I don't know how it tastes. It's supposed to be a really great slicer. So again, this is just one plant, and I allowed 2 branches, plus I added the sucker to one because I wasn't sure if we were gonna get much with the other plant that I did have here, and I'm glad I did that because I did end up having to pull this one, and now I have this just one plant growing significantly in this area. As you can see, that one plant is massive. So very happy that I decided on the variety. It's appearing to grow pretty nicely in this area. And this side is, I believe, Super Sweet is right here. These are growing very nicely. Love to see it. And then over here, I want to say this is another Hot Streak. Although I'm not really sure because that tomato looks kind of like the other ones over there that looked like a sauce variety. So not really sure what this is. I did not. Oh wait, here we go. These are Brad's Atomic Grape. So they are larger in size. Sorry, I keep having to pause. My dog apparently has a lot to talk about today. I don't know what's going on, but she is very vocal today. But as I stated, these are the Brad's Atomic Grape, and they appear to be large, elongated cherries in clusters with out of this world flavor. You can't tell me that does not sound good. So very excited. It's also crack resistant and extraordinarily sweet. Yum. Over here I have my dragon tongue beans. I think there might be a mix of Provider. And then we have this plant that I am also not sure of. I want to say this is a 4th of July that I assumed was a determinate, and now I'm quickly learning I believe this is a indeterminate. So we'll see how well this lasts on this pole. But I have my beans growing around it. Everything around here is looking pretty happy. We have harvested from these plants already, so they are starting to push out those new flowers. And we have all of the leftover carrots. I don't see any swallowtail in this bed, but that doesn't mean they won't find them. Over here we have our pole beans with an additional tomato growing. I honestly don't know what this one is either. I have every intention of placing the labels next to them, and then I forget. So if you can relate, let me know. But it appears to be happy. It's pushing out fruit. Well, not fruit yet. It's doing its thing as far as leaves are pushing out, new growth, and we hopefully will get some flowers here soon. But so far it's just kind of building itself up, which is fine because I want it to climb like the rest. And then to the right of it is those pole beans. These are the seashell varieties. We have a few down there that could probably be picked, as you can see. And then to the right we have, or the left, we have more of those seashell varieties that are starting to vine and push out more flowers, which will mean more beans in the coming weeks. So as you can tell, I love to harvest beans. It's so fun for the kids. It's something that's very rewarding, relatively easy to grow, and they are just the gift that keeps on giving. So I love them. Again, gonna be one of those varieties that once I get enough to can or freeze, typically I just freeze them or eat them fresh. Because I am growing them so abundantly, I have every intention of sharing them. So here we have more carrots, more eggplant. These are the, or I shouldn't say more, this is my only eggplant bed. And these are the ones that are just kind of hanging on for dear life because of those flea beetles. We have some fruit or flowers that hopefully will turn to eggplants. But this one's probably gonna have to be pulled. It is just, it's pretty sad. And it's not looking like it's gonna come back anytime soon with these leaves looking the way they do at the top. I am not very confident in that one. So that will probably be pulled, but I have some herbs growing on the outskirt of this bed with some sage and different varieties of my thyme. The thyme in this bed is not doing the best. I don't know if it's because I planted them so close to carrots or my beans, and the beans like relatively more water than a lot of these herbs, so that probably wasn't a good call. But they're not dying, they're just not really producing. So next year I will put them in a different bed. We still have the stevia growing on this bed, or in this grow bag. I don't know how to harvest it yet, so I need to really look that up. I put some beans in this smaller grow bag. I have my flowers. Again, I came through and pretty much harvested everything that was ready to be cut for that arrangement. But these are the zinnias, and that's Charlie. These are the zinnias. These are my celosia, and then my cosmos, as well as amaranth. Love Lies Bleeding. And you'll see in the other one, it's relatively similar, where those zinnias have just started to really bush out and take off from that last video. We also have a sensitive plant. The kids love this plant because it does that when you touch it. So I put that in there for fun, so the kids can come through and interact with the garden without destroying it. So we have lavender here. Nothing is flowering yet. It is just pushing out really nice leaf development stems. So I'm happy to see that. And then we have the cucamelon vines that are pushing out baby cukes. And I'm so excited to see those. My daughter loves this plant. It's her favorite thing to come out and harvest. We actually built this with chicken wire and some wood last year. My husband helped me, and we just kind of stapled it on, and it's worked relatively well for this specifically, because the cucamelons are so tiny that they almost have like a little place to rest, and they're easier to locate when they're climbing vertically like this. So we're seeing a bunch of tiny little baby flowers, and the fruit is starting to grow. So I am really excited, and my daughter is even more excited to hopefully harvest these. This is the strawberry bed. Unfortunately, we have dealt with some significant weather. The week that we had the heat, or I believe the week after we had that heat wave, we also had some strong wind gusts. And because of that, my makeshift netting situation with my PVC completely fell apart. So I have it opened to the outside world for now. I'm not really seeing a ton of flowering, so I'm not really worried about like birds eating fruit. We do have a few strawberries in there that we do have a few like flowers, and then some that are ripening on the vine. But we don't have an extreme amount that I feel like I need to cover these up so that the birds don't get them. But I am mainly focusing on this leaf development, all of those vines pushing out, so that we ultimately will have this entire bed covered with strawberries. I have those two varieties that I planted in here. One of them is the everbearing, and then we also have the June bearing. This is the newest addition. These are the June bearing, and they are starting to push out runners. So it is essentially doing what I envisioned, and my goal is to have strawberries from spring to fall if things go right within the next year. So this is like a long game type situation where I'm not expecting a ton of fruit this year. I didn't expect a ton of fruit last year because I am just strictly focusing on building this area out. If I really wanted to push fruit, I could trim these back, which would essentially tell that plant that it's gonna die and it needs to flower, which would give me more fruit, because the flowers are actually the fruit. Over there, looks like we have one that should be ready to harvest very soon. but I'm not going to touch it because I'm sure my daughter already has her eyes on it. She is in charge of this bed, so she runs everything when it comes to when those strawberries are ready, and a lot of the times they don't even make it inside. So that is her pride and joy right here, and I'm just here to help support that dream. Over here I have some carrots in this bed. I will come through and probably plant either beans or maybe even put my broccoli in these beds when it's getting closer to my fall garden time, where I need to start thinking about planting my fall crops. I haven't decided if I'm going to put them in the grow bags where I have harvested my potatoes, and I'll show you that in a minute, or if I'm going to try putting those in raised beds back here. Still thinking about placement for everything. So right now everything's looking relatively nice. These beans were looking good, but now they're looking a little bit sad, so I might need to come through and sow some more. That's a new one I planted. That's a weed. But we have our runner bean. I said runner bean, but I actually meant red noodle bean. These are my noodle beans that are growing pretty nicely up this trellis now. I was a little worried at first, but everything's looking good. We're not pushing any flowers out quite yet, but it's establishing its growth there on that trellis. This one is still having a hard time figuring out what it's supposed to do, but I heard that you can get a ton off of one plant. I did come through and succession sow just in case something were to happen because of those, I believe, either chipmunks, birds, something is coming through and trying to decapitate my beans this year. I don't know what's going on. And that's Zoe. And she is fully grown. Huh? You've already grown. Sweet girl. Right here we have the spooky carving pumpkins. I believe there's I want to say there's 4 plants in here that are starting to vine out. I harvested all of my celery. I have 1 onion that is still trying to bulb. If it's not ready by the time these run that way completely, I will have to pull it. But essentially this is going to take over this entire bed, and I am happy to see what happens. These are the only watermelons I have growing this year, with 1 random bean plant, but they are also starting to vine, and the goal here is they will climb over and go down that way or up this way. But these are the bags that I had all of my potatoes in. I actually completely forgot to take a video of the harvest. I apologize. I had my daughter helping me and it was very hot, so the last thing on my mind was trying to film. We were just trying to get that done. So we were able to harvest a pretty good amount of red and white potatoes, and I have started processing those where I'm gonna just freeze them this year essentially. But this is my Cinderella pumpkins. They are also just completely taking off, and again, the goal here is to vine down. So with all of that, we have had quite a lot of growth within the garden. I am just absolutely so happy. I was a little nervous because I just wasn't sure that we were going to have much success this year because of the weather. The flowers are doing somewhat okay back here. I think the heat really took a toll on the sunflowers, and there is some signs of disease on those leaves, or the birds are getting them. Haven't really figured that out yet. That's just more for looks back here. I do keep coming through and just planting tiny seeds to hopefully have more going into the fall. But we have more zinnias here, and then up this way where we just were coming from, or the other side, we have my grow bags with my strawberries, my celery that's remaining, and then we have zucchini and calendula, as well as these new additions. This is actually from Aldi. I have 2 of them. They were, I think, under $10, and I am going to actually grow beans on them, pole beans. So I got 2 of them to put in both of these bags, And as you can see, my beans are starting to grow, and the goal here is they'll climb. Over here, we have zucchini, more alpine strawberries, and then we have some flowers that are not looking too good, marjoram, and more beans. And then these are more zinnias, more cosmos, and more cosmos. So everything is looking great, including this dog who probably needs to just go inside and cool down now. But I am so excited to see how this looks in the next couple weeks. I will plan on doing another tour probably closer to the end of July, just to see the progress. I also like these just to be able to look back and see what worked, what doesn't work, and just follow along with the garden in the winter months, maybe when I need a pick me up or some motivation for when it's ready to start planting again. So I love to share these. I hope you enjoyed it, and happy gardening.